Welcome to Unity Center Spiritual Pflugerville this beautiful Sunday morning. My name is Val Cary. I am one of the prayer chaplains. Our beloved Robert and Madeline are home today healing from temporary respiratory conditions. So you have me. So thank you all for being here this morning and listening to my message, which is living your soul's purpose.
Yes.
What a wonderful thing. Isn't that why we are here?
Yes.
To live our soul's purpose. So I receive weekly electronic newsletters from a woman by the name of Natalie Kogan. She's an author, an artist, and she has a podcast. At age 13, she and her family migrated here from the former Soviet Union, and she's talked about her struggles in fitting in. She's talked about how she couldn't speak the language, had to learn the language, had to work on her accent. And so through a very dynamic career of startups and working for large tech companies, she realized that she was getting kind of burned out. And so she started reevaluating her life and, really thinking about why was she here and what made her happy and what did she want to do. And so she wrote 2 books. One's called Happier Now, and the other is called The Awesome Human Project. And these are part of her work in becoming more of who you are meant to be. She teaches living your life with more gratitude, more self-compassion, more kindness, and a sense of purpose. So her e-letter this week explored a term called eudaimonia, which is a Greek word, and it is living in accordance with your soul's purpose and reaching your highest potential. So my internet search about eudaimonia is that it's a term that comes from Aristotle's work called Nicomachean Ethics. And so I don't know if any of you ever took ethics in school, but it focuses on the science of good for human life, that which is the goal and our end at which all our actions aim. And so as we think about ethics, we think about that as a way to live a good life, a way to live in life in harmony with others. So an article by Sandra Reuter states that Nicomachean Ethics was written in the 4th century BCE, so pretty early on, and is one of the most influential works of ethical philosophy in the Western culture. It has a tremendous impact on the development of ethical thought from the ancient Greeks to modern day philosophers. In this work, Aristotle sets out to explore the nature of ethics, morality, and value. What is the ultimate goal of human life? He asks. And isn't that the question? Why are we here? What is our purpose? Why are we all so individually different? He discusses the various virtues that are necessary for a person to lead an ethical life and examines in this topic such as happiness and friendship. Eudaimonia is the state of having a good indwelling spirit, a good genius. It combines the prefix eu, meaning good, and daimon, meaning spirit. Think of it as human flourishing, a contented state of being happy and healthy and prosperous. It is living with purpose by growing through challenging experiences that bring meaning and fulfillment. Key here, people. Living through challenging circumstances. So we would all love for our lives to be easy and peaceful and joyful every minute of every day. But normally that's not what it looks like. Normally it looks like one thing after another and 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But guess what? Through that we grow. Through that we become who we were meant to be. Unlike happiness, eudaimonia, is not an emotion. It is a state of being or doing. It is stable and cannot be taken away from us. So Natalie's article called out that the essential thing about eudaimonia is that it's a continuous process to which you have to dedicate yourself. It is a practice of self-discovery. What is your soul calling you to do? We all have different things that we've come here to work on. Again, we are all unique individual children of God, set on a spiritual path that is ours alone. Now, our gift is that we get to work this together. It is self-awareness to recognize limiting beliefs and habits that block you from flourishing. It is embracing growth and challenge so that you can expand and evolve. So, in thinking about this, this made me think about the Unity 5 principles. And we did prayer chaplain training in 2021, and we were invited to look at the 5 principles in a unique way that was written by Reverend Linda Martella-Witzik. And Reverend Linda is the Vice President of Unity Prayer and Practice at Unity World Headquarters. Now, so first principle. I think we're ready for the next slide, please. So first principle, God is. That there is only one power and one presence in all of life. And that divine presence is called by many different names in many different cultures. This power keeps our heavenly bodies in orbit, as is the same power that informs the hearts and the minds of human beings. God is not superhuman, but God is the very essence of creative life. Creative life. What are we creating? Susan and I had a quick conversation this morning about creatives. And she reminded me, as I was listening to she and Larry work on our song this morning, which was different than we'd done before. And so they were tweaking it. They were like, oh, how do we take this song, which was beautiful, written by Karen Drucker, but how do we make this our own? How do we take a 4-verse song and make it a 3-verse song? And they played with it, and Susan used terms that I've never heard of, like modulating. I'm like, what's modulating? You know, and so it was just really interesting watching that process and watching their flexibility as they took something and made it their own and made it very beautiful. God is the formless intelligence out of which everything comes into existence. The power of God is expressed as divine life, love, and wisdom, the very nature of good. God is. I am, you are, we are. Humanity is created out of and is an extension or expression of the only power, God. The nature of humanity is like divine nature, good. When we engage in behaviors that do not appear good, we understand this behavior is a result of our forgetting our true identity and nature. So, recently this week, I had something that came up, and I didn't respond to it very well. And so I kind of sat with that and went, wow, why do I feel kind of yucky? And it was because I wasn't in my divine nature. I reacted in a way I shouldn't have reacted, but I had an opportunity to kind of go back and just sit with it. And so we have this inner barometer. We've got this inner north compass that helps us, guides us into being the very best that we can be. And isn't it wonderful that when we don't react the way that we could have, or when we don't do something that we could have, we kind of have that inner knowing, and we have that opportunity to kind of go back and look at it. I think this is a big one, folks. This is the big one. The consistent, persistent pattern of our thought is a truthful predicator of our human experience. When our outlook on life is positive, things are positive. When our outlook on life is negative, things tend to don't go very well. And that's what we notice. When our outlook is positive, we notice positive. When our outlook is negative, we notice negative. The human mind is pivotal in its its capacity to draw from either our human experience or our divine identity. In human terms, seeing is believing, but spiritually believing is seeing. So critical. So as you think, right? So pause before you react. Consider your belief system. Is what you're believing or what you're thinking at that time, is that your true divine nature, or is that something that you've learned from the material world that bears re-examining? The thing that I experienced this week kind of got me a little bit upset. Just a little. And then it took me a really long time to physically recover from that. And so if you think about how your thinking drives how you're behaving, or what happens in your body, we know that like hormones like adrenaline and some of the other things that come, they take a really long time to get out of your body. And so sometimes when something happens, somebody says something, or even you just have a thought based on what you're seeing, if you take a pause, take a breath, that gives you an opportunity to choose differently or to see something differently. And that's a big opportunity in helping you to live your soul's purpose. Because when you do that, you're then thinking about, what's my inner spiritual truth? What's the spiritual reality of this? Not the material, but that I have an opportunity to choose. The next one. This is the foundational one. I pray. So we know that prayer and meditation are foundational practices to awake the divine within us. Dedicating time every day for conscious reflection and being in the silence develops spiritual power. So with spiritual power, that's something that is always there. You are never without it. When we think about exercise, which is my least favorite thing to do, unfortunately, especially as I'm, needing to think about my bone health and my cardio health. But those things are really foundational. When you're spiritually strong, when something happens, you're balanced. You don't get knocked over. You've just got this inner wellness to be able to deal with whatever comes your way. During the day, it's always a really good idea. We talk about prayer, we talk about meditation, we talk about these being, maybe it's 5 minutes in the morning, maybe it's 10, like whatever works for you, right? There's no perfect formula. There's no perfect way to meditate. There's a ton of different methods. And so part of the gift is figuring out what works for you, what works for your schedule, what really brings you an opportunity to just be still, to not have to worry about anything, to just let the thoughts go, and to kind of open and heal through the divine. That didn't have to be just a once-a-day thing. That can be taking pauses through the day. That can be taking a little bit of time at lunch, maybe to take a short walk. Again, meditation doesn't have to be totally still. That's something that you could do. If you're a nature person, you can go take a short walk in nature and just sit and let go of the worries, let go of the thoughts. Just let your inner soul be filled with the divine, the nature that can renew you. Another part of this is, for me, is understanding my shadows. So as I'm in the silence and as I'm praying, like the thing that I got upset about this week, I'm like, okay, well, what was my part in that? When it happened, I was just kind of like, it was the other person. But then I realized that it wasn't them, it was me. It was me because I had an expectation that I hadn't been clear about. And so I got to understand, what was it about me that I could change, that I could do different? And I think that when you're in the silence, it's an opportunity to kind of reflect about to adjust, or what you might need to change, or what you might, need to be more clear about with someone. Especially if you've got a need, or you've got something that you need help with, being willing to be open about that. And sometimes that means being vulnerable. Sometimes that means saying, hey, I'm not very good at this, and I need help with this. And then as you do that, you're allowing others to be part of your life. And then the last one is, I act. We unleash the power of divine life, love and wisdom, when we make every thought, word, and action an intentional spiritual practice. This is how am I showing up in the world? Am I showing up as love? Am I showing up as peace? Am I showing up as forgiveness? Practicing these principles leads to spiritual mastery, increasing our capacity to be the light of the world. So, if you'll notice, that first principle is God is. The other four are I statements. These I statements are the I am of how we show up in the world as the divine. So, kind of going back to Natalie's newsletter, she says that when you're flourishing, you're bringing the best version of you to everyone whose lives that you touch. You create a positive impact that only you can. Your flourishing is the greatest contribution that you can make. And so kind of as we think about this year, we think about 2025, when we think about, what happened last year, how did that go? Are there things I can do differently for 2025? I am not one for setting New Year's resolutions. I am much more, prone to just saying, how do I need to show up this year? And, I like lists. I don't know if any of you are list makers. So, what are my lists for 2025, and how to be flexible when those lists need to change. So I would like to open up the floor at this time. If anybody has any questions or has any thoughts about living your soul's purpose. No? Okay, so we've got a quiet crowd today, which is good because we're still early in January. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for being here with us, and blessings to you for a marvelous week ahead.